Right, here are the tools I use to do this job. Some of these bits are optional, some of them you don't need, some of them you do need. So first thing we have is the way to hold up the caliper to stop it from dangling. Then we have molly grease. We also have some lock thread or Loctite, copper grease, WD-40, a 3/8 ratchet, a large beater. I think these are called Swedish pliers, but they're fantastic. I love them. A breaker bar, 17mm socket, flat blade screwdriver, T30 torque, 13mm socket, and a socket driver or a ratchet. This just happens to be a 3/8, but you can use what you want. A brake file, brilliant, and a 1/2" impact gun as well. Sorted. Oh yeah, also a drill with the special brake cleaner pads on it. Nice. Oh yeah, and some brake cleaner. Sorted. Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. We have a 2015 Toyota Aygo behind us, and the customer complaint was, as he was driving down the road, every so often we'd hear kind of like a clinging or a banging or some kind of a thud noise. Now, I've taken it for a drive and it's happened to me a few times, and it kind of sounds like a debushing kind of a noise, but it's not a debushing because it's only like, you know, it doesn't happen all the time when you go over bumps and stuff like a debushing actually would. So I've actually figured out what it is, and we're going to show you. Sorted. Right, so this is a 2015 with 60,000 miles on it. And can you see the issue already? Hopefully that's coming through on camera. But essentially what's happened is the backing or the metal pad has come away from the backing of the actual brake disc. And every so often this is either moving in or moving out. Anyway, it's making a thudding noise. Not all the time. The brakes still actually work, but obviously this is very, very dangerous. So what we'll do is we'll whip off the actual caliper. It's a 13mm. You can actually see what I mean. You can see where the disc has been running rather than on it. So it's been basically running that way rather than kind of there. Like I said, the brakes were still working, but this is really, really dangerous. The pads weren't particularly worn, but just essentially older than more worn, if that makes sense. And as you can see, so just because your pads are good and they're not particularly old, and this goes with any parts, doesn't mean they're going to last. You know, people will look at a pad like that and they think, oh, that's got loads of life left on it. But if that's really, really old and gone really, really hard and glazed, it's no good. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it is good. And this is a good case in point. You know, if you kind of look at that, you would think, oh yeah, there's another, you know, 20,000 miles or 10,000 miles, whatever left on that pad. And, you know, there just isn't. So, pads and discs sorted. Right, so what we got, new discs, new pads, and new hardware. So we're going to install everything and make it nice and neat and new again. I don't know why I said neat, but new again, sorted. First thing I'm going to do is just have a look at the conditions of the pins. Do they need cleaning and greasing, or just, well, look at that. It's really, really clean. Doesn't need cleaning, but it needs greasing. So we're going to use molly grease for that, which is good. Don't use copper grease or anything like that, because these are moving parts. Again, that's not dirty, it's just needs greasing. No copper grease, no nothing like that, because these are moving parts. Copper grease will act like sandpaper and actually cause more damage than anything. So also what I want to do is take off the brake hardware. Now, depending where you are in the world, you suffer more with rust jacketing. We do have rust here because there is salt on the roads, but it's not like really bad in the sense of, you know, I haven't had many problems with discs or the carrier because of rust jacking. Normally a good wire brush or a good file, which I'm going to show you a brake file in a minute, is absolutely fine. But again, it depends where you are in the world to what you actually need. But what we can do is, before we do anything, let's just take off the brake retainer here. So it's a T30, and we might just need the carrier still on, because it will spin. And when you've got it still on, you can wedge a screwdriver in there, and it'll just kind of hold it for you. How tight is it going to be? Don't like the feel of this. This feels like it's going to snap. I really don't like the feel of this. Taking my time, and move it backwards and forwards. Now it's not the end of the world if these break. You can always get them out, re-thread them and put a new one in, but it's not really that important, to be honest, because the wheels will hold it on itself, or the studs, but it just helps you line up the studs. It's not really to hold the brake on, as some people think. It's just really to help you line up the holes for the wheels easier. What I might have to do is see if I can spray a bit of lube in it when I get it open a little bit more, and leave it sitting for a while. You can always try and heat up the metal around it as well, but this definitely... No, that's going to break. I don't like that. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to squirt some stuff down in there first, some WD or something like that, just to kind of let it soak in 10-15 minutes, and then we'll come back to it. Yeah. No, it's just not going to work. I just don't like it, and I get this all the time. I've done videos on heater plugs and stuff, and I didn't use WD or any sort of lubricant, and people are, oh, you should have done it, would have made it easier. No, it didn't work in this case, and it doesn't work in a lot of cases, especially with, now this is not carbon, but especially with carbon buildup and stuff. It cannot penetrate backwards and forwards, and heat is better normally, or most of the time, than anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some heat on the back of this bolt here, and just not so much heat the bolt, but try and heat the actual plate. But I've got to be careful. I don't want to put too much heat into it, because we have got a bearing here and a few you know, rubber bushings and stuff. So I'm not going to heat it up heavy, just enough to help it release that last little bit. And this might go on fire because of the WD. No, it's the WD that's smoking there. I know people are going to say, oh, you're going to damage the wheel bearing doing that. No, just no. When brakes stick, when brakes, you know, rub and you use them, it's going to get a lot hotter than what I've just done. So before you make that comment, just think about it. The difference is phenomenal. That little bit of heat, which, look, I can touch that. It's not affecting anything. So before anyone says, that's made all the difference. All the difference. But 10 seconds, 15 seconds of heat. Sorted. Now, we can take the carrier off. We can take the carrier off. To 17 mils. Lovely. Now, what I want to do is just put this carrier back, just kind of on loosely. And like I said, depending where you are in the world, this might be worse or better than what I got at the minute. File for brakes that's really, really sharp and abrasive, but I'm just going to lay it flat. And like I said, these aren't bad. Only take me a few seconds. This is actually from Muller, which is essentially Sykes. And very, very quickly, I can knock off all the brake dust and all the crap on there. That's that top one, the bottom one done. Hopefully you can see all the brake dust just fall off. And that's it. That is done. And you see how quick that was. And if I put that to the camera now, you'll just see how shiny that is. There's no high spots. There's no, hopefully you can see that. No high spots, no nothing. Boom, done. Ready for the new, I'll leave it back on for a second. It's easier to put. Right, it's just a lot easier to put these on when the carrier is kind of in place. Now bear in mind, you'll see there's kind of an edge that sticks out and an edge that's flat. The flat edge needs to go towards the actual disc itself. And they just clip into place and they spring back. That is supposed to be spring loaded like that. That's also stops the brakes from rattling. So that's the wrong way down, just like we just said. So hopefully you'll see it there a bit better. That's what actually stops the brake from rattling and making noise. The last one. Which I have seemed to have lost. Well done, Leon. Found it. Now, there we go. That's done. Now what we need to do is clean this for the new disc. Again, it all depends where you live to how bad this is. I've never really known it to cause a problem over here, even on kind of older cars, because what you are supposed to do is once you've done this, you're supposed to put a dial indicator on your brakes anyway and check your run out. Nobody does that, but you're technically supposed to. But it's like everything, do you really need to? Once you give it a good clean, you will be alright. These are one of these special brake cleaners. They can actually go, if you've got a stud, you can put it down the stud. They're really good. This particular one I think is from Draper. Lovely. Now, I just like to clean all the crap off. Sorted. Now let's wait for that brake clean to evaporate, and then again molly grease, and that will just help it for the next time. All different types of grease you can use, but high performance molly grease is good because it doesn't compact. And again, don't use copper grease here. Lovely. Now there is no cleaning of these brake discs, and what I mean by that is the lot of the older brake discs used to come with like a special oil on which you had to clean because you didn't want it to get into your brakes and you wanted it to brake properly. But these ones you don't. Now in the sense of if you get all oily handprints over it, yes, but there is no, this is a special painted coating which you'll see after literally 10 seconds driving, you'll see it burning off. And what also is really good, take it for a short little drive, and if you just see that it's only burnt off in half, or it's burning off in a weird place, you know you might have an issue with your brakes not sitting properly. There is a bedding in period as well, so don't, you know, take that into consideration, but it just gives you a really good indication of kind of what's happening with your brakes. Now we can stick this back on. And the slide pins on this were really good, but what you might have to do sometimes is actually just clean the slide pins, clean all the old kind of grease that kind of gets compacted on there. In this particular case we didn't need to, but some of the times you do. Now, like I said, that isn't there for any safety thing. It's not there to keep the disc in, because if it was, that's going to snap very easy. The actual bolts keep the disc in, but what that really does is it just makes it easy because it keeps the disc kind of centered for you or pushed in for you, and it also lines up the holes, because if you didn't have that, this disc could be slightly turned, you won't be able to get the wheel nuts in, and it just makes your life that little bit harder. But it's not really that necessary. There's a lot of cars out there that don't have anything like that. Now, the rule of thumb I always use when putting brakes back, the bolts, is if it had Loctite on, I put Loctite back on. If it doesn't, I don't. There is no Loctite on these particular bolts, but there is Loctite on these, on the caliper, but not all the time, not on every car. So just kind of bear that in mind too. One of my clips are gone. But always, always tighten everything by hand. You can screw it in with the gun, but tighten it by hand. So then you know it's definitely tight enough. Click, click. We're going to get the torque Nazis after us again. You're going to use the torque wrench. I did, didn't you hear the click? Click, click. Sorted. Right, so what I'm going to do now is get the pads, put a bit of copper grease on them. On the edges first. Right, so a bit of copper grease. Shouldn't really put it on the pad first, because like I've just done there, because what can happen is you can transfer that to the disc, which obviously you don't want to do. But one goes in at one edge, push it down, and that'll go in, as you can see, nice and easy. I didn't force that, that went in with a couple of fingers, because that means now we've got no rust jacketing between the caliper and our rattle pins, and it just goes in really nice and easy. I'm going to do that with the other one, no point me showing you, and then we'll get the caliper back on. Right, and there we go. 2 pads are on. Just double check our slide pins are nice and free, which they are. Next thing we need to do is we need to push back the actual caliper. Hopefully you can see that. And very, very easy. We can do that with another tool. Sorted. Now these things are awesome. These are made by Beta, but there's loads of different makes out there, but the really cheap ones, the jaws don't particularly last, so it's up to you what you want to get. I got these not by accident, but the tool truck, he ordered one and the guy never wanted it in the end, so I got it quite cheap, and I just got it because it was cheap, not because I really understood what it was for. And that was for, obviously it's for loads of things, but what I find it absolutely fantastic for is winding back brakes. Now I need to get my bigger one for that, but it's fantastic. I think it's called a Swedish plier, but you'll see why it's fantastic in a second. Let me get the bigger one. Now the bigger one will work. Like I said, they're not cheap, but they're brilliant. And the reason why I like them, because as you push them, if you look at the bottom jaw goes straight, so it actually pushes it nice and evenly. If I get it over there, and I can just push down, and there we go. That caliper's gone back. How easy is that? I love these things. I love them. Sorted. Right, and now to put the caliper back. You want to make sure these are straight because they have to line up with the little cutouts on the caliper. And there we go. Caliper goes on nice and easy. Drop the thread lock wheel. Put a bit of thread lock on it, because these bolts had some on it. And like I said, if they don't, I don't put them on. If they do, I do put it on. Always tighten everything by hand. And what you've all, what am I doing, loosening it? What you've also got to remember is you're now going to have to pump your brake inside, because the piston is back on the caliper and you're going to have no brakes. So that is it. Pump them, drive down the road, make sure everything is okay. Watch for the kind of the way the paint comes off to make sure it's coming off nice and even. Always spin your wheel, make sure there's no crap hidden by the discs on the pads, and also spin your wheel to make sure it's not locking, it's not binding, it's not doing everything. Press your brakes a few times. You are going to feel a bit of binding when you press the brakes, but just make sure it's spinning nice and evenly, nice and freely. And there we go. So look, that's it. That's how you do brakes. That was the noise coming from the actual car. And yeah, so that's it. So look, hope it helps. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Don't forget, links appear, links down below. But most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. Sorted.